our ancestors floated lighter than the air, flowing effortlessly like water, with their inner fire, aiming for the sky, but always remaining firmly on the ground, keeping the earth close to their hearts.
கனிவுடன் கதிர்களாகி கனி நிறை காடாகி கலந்திடு இதயங்களில் ஒரு சிறு நீர்த்துளியில் ஒளிரும் உயிரொளியாய் நிறைந்திடு அழகழகா பூவாகி புழுவாகி மலர்கிறதே அனலாகி குளிராகி அணைக்கிறதே கனிவுடன் கதிர்களாகி கனி நிறை காடாகி கலந்திடு இதயங்களில் ஒரு சிறு நீர்த்துளியில் ஒளிரும் உயிரொளியாய் நிறைந்திடு அழகழகா எமது பூமி எமது நீர் நெருப்பு காற்று ஆகாயம் எமது பூமி எமது நீர் நெருப்பு காற்று ஆகாயாகி மழையாகி
Elementary. Without the glory of the elements, there is no us. Without the home on this beautiful planet, there is no us. So, for this Mother Earth, let us all become enlightened warriors again, to protect, to preserve, and to pass on. Take the right step forward. The right step forward.
கனிவுடன் கதிர்களாகி கனி நிறை காடாகி கலந்திட இதயங்களில் ஒரு சிறு நீர்த்துளியில் ஒளிரும் உயிரொளியாய் நிறைந்திடு அழகழகா
நதியாகி மழையாகி ஆகிறதே மலையாகி சிலையாகி அமைகிறதே
Hari Om everyone. I welcome all of you to this new but a continuation of what happened yesterday. We had a beautiful boat that went through the river and it came to a delta point where now they are making a beautiful ship, and that ship is going to have inaugural crew members that will give us a lot of knowledge about whatever hindrances that we are having to face IKS today in our world. So I welcome everybody to this session of a world empowered by Indian knowledge system. Yesterday we had what to do, but today we are going to have the topic, make it happen now. So I welcome first and foremost Professor B. Mahadevan, Professor of Production and Operation Management in IIM Bangalore. Sir. Next we have Professor Ganti S Murthy ji, a Professor of Biosciences and Biomedical Engineering, IIT Indore. Our own Vice Chancellor of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, Professor Ajay Kapoor ji, I welcome you on the stage. Dr. Anuradha Choudry, Assistant Professor, Faculty Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kharagpur. Srimati Sahana Singh ji, author and commentator, and has authored the book, The Educational Heritage of Ancient India, How an Ecosystem of Learning Was Laid to Waste. She is an environmental engineer by qualification and writes on various issues including Indian history, water management, and education. Now we have this crew, the beautiful ship, but for this to sail, we need a captain. And that captain must be safe. So I welcome Dr. Sunita Grandi, our Dean of Academics, Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. By the way, this ship is new to this ocean, and she has certain surprises for the crew members and all the people who are visiting this ship now.
Yes, this ship needs a lot of support, and this ship needs one more crew member, and that is our own Professor Gauri Mahulikar. Please give a big hand and welcome Professor Gauri ji. So as you can see, this sea that we are going to go through in life in here is not an ordinary ship. And this ship cannot have an ordinary captain. So who are we going to have to get this ship into the sea where we are it's going to face a lot of rough waters. It's going to face a lot of challenges. And for that, we have none other than our own Shri N.M. Sundarji here. So why do we have Shri N.M. Sundarji? He has been a long time sevak of Chinmaya Mission. And he has been here since the founding of CVV. He has seen how the CVV has started to take shape, and he's now seeing CVV into the next phase, which many of you have already seen, which is our new campus coming up at Onakur, which is going to happen in about 80-acre facility. This ship is going to sail in those seas where IKS is going to be taken to greater heights. And that is why we have N.M. Sundarji, who is going to lead that effort. And with that, I request N.M. Sundarji to take it away and lead the ship with all our great people out here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sunita ji. And my pranams to all the distinguished people who are here on the panel. There is one great advantage that I have, that is, I neither have a PhD nor have I published any books. So therefore, I have the arrogance of ignorance in asking these questions. So please excuse me if I seem to step beyond my boundaries. What I like the title, A World Powered by IKS, and how do we make it happen? So this is an opportunity for all of us to visualize big. I would like the audience also to build on what the speakers have to say. So if I could request each of you to take 2 minutes to tell us what you think the world powered by IKS looks like. Pick 1 or 2 domains and you can get started. Gauriji, as the person who's right next to me, you can, and also And you're also considered the Jnana Vriddha here. So, so over to you.
Hari Om. Are Bapre. So the world empowered by ICAS, how do I visualize it? In one or two domains, Sundarji has ordered me. So I see, first of all, language as the main thing, because language is the expression to culture. Language has survived, our Sanskrit language has survived especially for thousands of years, despite so many attacks on us, and all great civilizations, when they were wiped out, the language protected our culture, and it has preserved the IK storehouse, which Mahadevan ji was referring to. I just entered while he was summarizing his Prabhashanam as the jewel box, and the key to that box is Sanskrit. The Kunjika is Sanskrit. So language is the main domain, I feel. I think I can pass it on.
A world powered by IKS for me would be one where the source is acknowledged, where the fact that it has originated from India, it has come from India, sustained by the gurus, transmitted across generations. That acknowledgement is there, and then there is no boundary between the streams of knowledge. I see that, the separation into silos of knowledge is not there, and knowledge is seen as a unified whole. That is my visualization of a world powered by IKS. And to just give a little bit of example, like when I was undergoing treatment for my condition, I talked about it a few days ago. So I would have to now choose one or the other. If I go through the Western system, it has the Western medical treatment. There's no question. I cannot even mention the word Ayurveda. If I go to Ayurveda, then again, there is, that are so totally different domains. I don't want that. So the vision I have is a unified whole where you take anything you want from, but make it a unified whole. Take the technology from the West, but use Ayurvedic concepts, and it encompasses everything, my diet, my lifestyle, and everything. It's a unified treatment is what I was looking for, which I never got. So my vision of world powered by IKS would be this unified offering.
Namaste, Matrubhyo Namaha, Pitrubhyo Namaha, Gurubhyo Namaha, Sabhayinam, Sabhapatibhyo Namo Namaha. So the world powered by IKS, the way that I see Sundarji had asked me to say two things. The first thing is, I would echo what our Gauriji had just talked about. Bharatiya Jnana Parampara exists in Bharatiya Bhashas. Right now, we are compelled to study in English if we want to move forward in life. That is the economic reality. What I would like to change is, we keep talking about Macaulay and all that. Enough. What has happened is enough. But 1835 was when he did this. 2035, we have another 12 years. Let's change the education system of India where everybody can learn in Bharatiya Bhashas. That's one thing. The scientific research should be done in Indian knowledge systems, in Bharatiya Bhashas. I should be able to write high quality scientific proposals, publish in Bharatiya Bhashas, talk in Bharatiya Bhashas, and exchange ideas in Bharatiya Bhashas. That is my first thing. Second thing, Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat. That's the first thing that our Shruti says when Bhrigu was looking at it. Looking 25 years, 30 years down the line, I see a world where we will be seeing a lot of food crises, and that cannot be addressed by the current methods. As an ag engineer, that is what I foresee. So therefore, it is important for us to bring the Vaidika Krishi Parampara, which uses the 99.6% of the soil that is currently ignored in the current industrial agriculture, and basically we'll be able to feed the world of 10 billion people without impacting the environment in a negative way. This is my second point. Thank you.
Thank you, Sundarji, for that question. And there are many viewpoints. And so I will take my viewpoints and specifically focus on the university side of things as I perceive it. So to me, the task of training our youngsters is the key thing. The question that bothers me a lot is that I've seen my children grow overseas, but I've seen a lot of family children grow in India. Nobody taught them Western knowledge systems. Nobody took a lesson on eating a pizza or going to KFC. They all went. Despite parents saying it's not healthy, despite everybody else saying it's not healthy. How do I do that so that my children, without us pushing them into this, go towards IKS? So I want to, number one, understand 2000, 20,000 years history we know very well. 1,000 years we contributed significantly, but then 1,000 years we did not. We let our doors open, people came, conquered us, subjugated us, took away our pride. We have lost pride in our culture. Long time back, 84, I went to Cambridge. At that time, you would be probably not like to be telling somebody I am from India. You have come a long, long, long way. We proudly say we are Indian. What do I do that? So to me, a word powered by IKS is when we have a lot of pride in our India, in our Indian traditions.
I think very important issues have been put on the table. So as you go to the end, I think we can afford to say, I already agree with others and so on. But two things I want to say. The first thing is, if the world is powered by IKS, then there is only one term that comes to my mind. Because the very definition of dharma, if I have to translate it into English, to the nearest possible English, to me it is sustainability. There is so much talk about sustainability today. Dharana dharma ityahu dharmo dharayate jagat. Yat dharana sanyuktam saha dharma iti nischitah. That which alone has a capability to sustain is called dharma. So our IKS must project to the world that the roots and the laws governing sustainability are here. I think that should be the basis on which we set on this journey. So that's the first thing. I think it must be dharmic, because that alone is sustainable. That's about the principle of how do we go about. But from an university system, doing it here and all that, I also want to tell two things. It's extremely important when we get our hands into doing this. Let's say we get IKS into and all that. I think there are two important principles we must always keep. Every university, everybody must keep it. The first principle is the principle of contextual relevance drives knowledge, not knowledge drives and searches for a contextual relevance. We should train ourselves like that. There is a reason. So the literature should not go for the sake of it. The context attracts the literature. That would be far more acceptable. So we should develop that attitude to making it happen. I'm talking about the making it happen part of it. I think the context must drive the knowledge than vice versa. We should develop that, then it's much easier. The other principle I think we must all keep in mind is, as a professor of management, I will tell you, it's extremely important that we pluck the low-hanging fruits first. The reason is we are actually swimming upstream, not downstream. Because as Ajay ji and others said, there's so much water is flowing on the wrong direction. We are now trying to change the course. That we have to be very realistic of that. So I think in terms of priority, we must know the low-hanging fruits and put the best efforts to pluck them first. The rest will follow. I think these are the couple of things that I thought I will share. Thank you.
As Mahadevan ji said, it's very difficult to add anything more after a long line of experts and senior speakers. So still I'll try to do my part because psychology hasn't been touched as yet. So from a psychological perspective, I would think that if this world is powered by IKS, then at least in Bharata, we would actually have real Bharatiyas, which means one who is immersed in light the light of greater wisdom that this civilization has offered. So an alternate, the possibility, I'm not saying that it's the only one, but the possibility of an alternative way of looking at yourself, of dealing with the world, of creating things, of what Mahadevan said of sustainability. So we see that this system, this country, the civilization has come so far, creating incredible things, but without exploiting nature in any way. So this wisdom of thinking about 7 generations further and acting on that basis, I think could be the foundation of our actions as such. And as Bharatiyas, I would think that a lot of youngsters here are, for me, the models of what a Bharata in the future would look like, because it gives confidence. It's really very, very heartening to see the kind of confidence, the kind of steadiness, and the kind of peace that is there in many of our youngsters versus, let's say, in the universities or wherever I have been. So I think that would be a very important thing. And in the context of the world, that wherever a Bharatiya goes or this knowledge touches that soil has to again awaken with that wisdom of this civilization. So I see the wisdom of the civilization becoming the paradigm for decision making across the world, for the self and for the collective.
He had said 2 things. I said only one. So I said, let me give my second thing also, second domain. And that is depending upon, just now we saw the film, the documentary, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When our literature, our scriptures address everybody as Shrunuvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha. All are the children of immortality, and please listen to this. So that oneness, we saw that it is one world, one goal, and one journey. So I think that world empowered by IKS is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, G20.
I must thank you all for some very interesting answers, and clearly from the audience I can see there's a resonance. Now Ajay being Ajay has obviously put the whole thing as a challenge, in the sense that how do we make it IKS cool? How do we make it generally acceptable? Right? So today in the world, yoga is considered cool, maybe not in the way the Indian yoga practitioners would think of it, but there is some vague sense of coolness about it. Likewise, Ayurveda, Indian food, there are some levels of that. How do we now take it to things like language, things like spiritual practices? Because at the end of the day, no matter who the practitioner is, there is a core of spirituality that is there. How do we make that cool so that we can have a world empowered by IKS? I'd like to actually start with Anuradha ji at the end.
So thank you. Personally, I think that we really have to create a story for the Bharatiya civilization. I think we are all buying into stories subconsciously. And when we are working on IKS, I think we're still working on systems, bringing in this system, bringing in that system. We haven't yet focused on creating a national narrative, a story that we would all want to subscribe to. So I've been thinking on this line for a while, and the story that I have come up with is this idea of a Bharata Swadhyaya Andolanam. I think we need to do this Andolanam of a Bharata that is introspective again, that is looking at what does it mean to be a Bharatiya as an education system, what does it mean to be a Bharatiya as a business organizer, what does it mean to be a Bharatiya. So if we can get the story into the atmosphere of it's 75 years, this nation needs to introspect about where are we going, where are we going, etc., and how do we get there. So creating this story of how do we, who we are, I think if that engages the common mind, then I think we are succeeding. And that can be done through media, through social media, through different programs, etc.
I think Sundarji has opened a very important question here. I like the word cool. Well, my daughter tells me, Appa, you have to be cool, otherwise nothing will go. it took a while for me to get the cool part of what she was saying. I think there's a very important point. That from an university perspective, that very significantly throws a challenge on what I call it as pedagogy. I will give one example. I teach Triguna as part of my Bhagavad Gita elective. My students will rate it the coolest probably if I have to use that kind of a scale. How do I do it? I just open a Microsoft PowerPoint color palette, RGB, and I keep putting all kind of numbers there. Because there are the 3 digits, 0 to 255. So I prepare a table, and the table has all kinds of colors and all kinds of numbers. So I ask them, please tell me what's going on here. And then they almost get all the fundamentals of Triguna there. Then I go to another, table. I keep the blue of the RGB. I keep the blue somewhere between 220 to 250. And I ask students to try any number on the other 2 sides. You always get a shade of blue. Nothing else you can get. You do anything with R and G. As long as the B is kept between 220 and 250, you get only shades of blue. So I just use only these 2 color palettes. We have a 45 minutes discussion. After that, the law of guna dominance, which is there in chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita, tamas, rajas, abhibhuya, sattva, bhavati bharata, all that they will tell, sir, you don't have to tell me what it is, I have figured out what it is. So what I'm saying, I think it's extremely important. Kshetrajna Vibhaga, I teach with a 7-minute video in which a person from military service is run over by a truck and his back is completely broken. He is paralyzed chest down. He becomes a professional bike racer. 7 minutes I show that. And I ask them to discuss who is this person. They almost tell everything Krishna said in chapter 13. As to what is soul, what is the Sukshma Sarira, what is the Stula Sarira, everything they say. Then I just take a few minutes to just show them, they connect it. So I think you have raised a very important point. We have to be cool in bringing the concepts. Today the technology and the available multimedia and all, we are only limited by our imagination to bring these concepts. The moment they see the connection, you are not in the picture anymore. They know how to take it forward. I think we need to do that. Thank you.
Sundarji, this is absolutely the right question for a VC to be asked. Now, answer is very difficult. I've thought about it quite a lot, and wonderful suggestions which we will certainly be using here. I look into what is cool. How will a child define cool? Why is going to temple not cool? You all are different. You all are ICAS oriented, like Mahadevan ji setting the blue at 220. My problem is that I got red set at 220. So how do I make sure that this is also cool? Or if not, it is not uncool. Now, I look into this. If I'm a very young child, what would impress me? What do I want to do? And I'm talking of majority people, not the minority. 1 or 2 will always like to go and become, and others. But then they will just study by themselves. We do not need a university to teach them. They will do it themselves. When I'm looking at millions of other young students who come, give us 3 precious years of their life. What do I do with that? So cool, as I see, is defined by them, in a sense, moving towards something successful. Whatever they define as successful, majority, I think, are influenced greatly by the TV. Success means a big house, very big car, very fat salary check and all that. So they see that and say, if I do that, I become cool. To the extent, I've seen children will walk on the footpath, dog poo is there, they happily bring their shoes not inside the house, in fact into the bedroom, and lie on the bed with those because it is cool. So that rationality is not there. We may blame the West for the rationality, but that rationality doesn't get used always. There's a lot more than that in becoming cool. How do I make it cool? To me, there's a big gap. I also try to sort of overcome that in myself. I say we are a great civilization for last 10,000 years. Why could last 1,000 years anybody who wanted to walk into India could walk into India? We can't close our eyes to that big question. Children will answer that. They actually have a right to know the answer to that question. Unless we make peace with that big question last 1,000 years, we'll leave it open again. You do all the work, you develop it very well, somebody else will walk in. Because we just leave it open. We don't lock our door and we blame the thief who comes and steals. What an uncivilized person. That's okay. That's okay. But why are we not taking care? And once is okay, why 10 or 20 times? So to me, making it cool, Sundarji, is still a question I'm looking at. I don't think I have the answers. Like you, I also have many questions, but I will probably like to sit down with Anuradha ji with you. As psychologists, what is our psychology? We are a very wounded civilization. Unless we remove that scar, we heal that scar, and that may take a couple of generations. It can't happen in a day. After that will come that pride. When that pride comes, battle is won. They will search on the Google themselves. Somebody says, hey, India did nothing. They say, hold on a minute. I don't know, but that doesn't sound right. They may not know it. They will search on the Google and say, look at that. India did that. So that to me is the framework, the foundation, the work that we will do. We are doing it to make it really cool. I think I gave very long answer, but
In terms of the coolness, essentially the way that I look at it is we get influenced by rational arguments and also emotional arguments. The coolness factor is more towards the emotional and that side of things. But then one thing that we all know, that especially youngsters, they're not stupid. They know things. They are very discerning. So the point is, they are not naive. They can easily distinguish between what is good, high quality stuff versus what doesn't appear. So whatever we produce from the side of the IKS to convince them should be of the highest quality, should be using the technology to the maximum extent, and should be leveraging all kinds of resources that we have to produce whatever the thing that we talk about should be of the highest quality. I think the quality of arguments, media that we create, or any stories that we tell should be of the highest order. I think that will appeal, because then it is easy to show off a high quality stuff, and then that will make it more cooler than show some kind of a shoddy thing to somebody. So I think that one is something that if we can pursue that high quality thing and then push it, that I think will help in the coolness factor. That is one thing that I think about. And in terms of the other things, in terms of what can make it cool is, again, there will be, as Professor Ajay ji was talking about, we should be thinking about those millions, that 98-99% of the population, which really needs to be oriented. But then it's a ship that has to be turned. So it will take some time. And it has to be done in such a gradual and natural way that nobody even feels it. I know many of you must have seen that BTS, the Korean pop band and all that. So there is an entire ecosystem that has been created around it. Why did it become popular among kids? This is something that I look at. And then when you look at it, there are so many elements that actually are supporting it. So there are these music videos, there is fashion accessories, there are these cool all the songs and all we don't know in Korean, but then they still watch it and all. And then there is that entire ecosystem that has merchandise. All of those things have been created. I think we need to start creating that kind of an ecosystem approach and systems approach. If we can do that, and that requires participation from all kinds of experts. And it is not just the university, it is also the media, it is also the writers, it is also the graphic designers, and all of those things need to be coming together. And I think those two things are doing whatever, taking a systems approach, one. Second thing, doing the very best with the highest quality in whatever we do will promote that coolness is what I think. Namaste.
For me, I think I'll have to first talk at a personal level and then I'll go to the larger perspective. So I think for me, it was all about being authentic. I'm not trying to be cool, but I'm trying to be authentic. And as I get more and more authentic, and that involves knowing my culture, myself, I discovered that I have become cool in the process without knowing it. So I have my daughter, and she's one person like, I can test everything with her, and her opinions matter a lot because she reflects what other children must be thinking as well. So the one thing is that we need to get closer to the new generation. We can't have that generation gap. So with me, with my daughter, I'm extremely close to her, and I am not always judging her. I'm trying to understand her. So I want to be the mother to whom she'll tell everything. So if I show a lot of rage, if I'm always annoyed, always telling that their movies are bad, their music is bad, everything is stupid about what this younger generation is doing, then she will block off all whatever I'm saying. She won't listen. So instead of that, I would, if she's loving Harry Potter, well, I went and read all the Harry Potter books. And whatever I liked about them, I discussed it with her. Oh, I love this part. This part is amazing. This is exactly like what is written in our Upanishad. And then, I would make that connection. So Harry Potter itself gave me so much of connection with our Indian knowledge systems as we would read, as I was discussing. So everything is an entry point for me into the Indian knowledge systems, whatever I'm discussing. So movies, we watched a lot of movies. Now, sometimes I'm forced to watch movies that she likes. And I do try to understand what she likes about it. And after sitting through it, I would probably tell her that, okay, very honestly, I didn't like this part. And then she'll say, okay, what did you not like? Tell me. And she'll be, like, why are you not? She'll tell me 100 reasons why I should have liked it. And I'll give her a few reasons. Look, this didn't touch this thing. It was at a shallow level, but otherwise it's a good movie. But this few things. So this starts that conversation where she's now looking at it from our Natya Shastra perspective. I make her see a lot of old movies which I love. And then she says, I didn't like this movie. Why? And then she'll tell me this wasn't well made. This scene wasn't convincing. Then I said, but what were you feeling? Did you feel any emotions? Then we get into the rasa. So if you have felt all these emotions, so maybe there was something there. Even though the movie is not totally well made as you see today, technologically it wasn't convincing. It didn't look like he was flying in the air or all those things, right? It looked very, but the feeling that you got, what was the feeling you got? Did you get an authentic feeling? Sadness? Were you moved by what happened? Then you're feeling you have been touched. So, we discuss movies, books, and that's the way with my daughter, there is that closeness. And then, of course, the way I dress, that also matters. I wasn't wearing saris all the time. I was a jeans and t-shirt person. Somewhere along when I discovered myself, I felt like I feel so comfortable in this. So when I go to the university with her or anything, anywhere, I'm wearing saris a lot in the US. And then she sees the good response I get from the people. They say, oh, what a lovely sari. Is this from India? Of course, it's from India. Oh, and then, I will use that. If there's a conversation, I'll tell them about the fabric. I'll tell about how India was a leader in textiles and, it'll just go. And then my daughter is watching to see if they are getting bored and all. But if they're getting interested and asking me more questions, she says, okay, wow, my mother is cool. People like to talk to her. They are you. And so it happens. So, oh, thanks. So once I went to a supermarket and I went into a store and I was buying. So one guy comes and says, oh, you're going to a party or something. I said, no, this is my daily wear. Oh, you wear this every day? So I lied a bit. I said, yes, I wear it every day. Oh my God, you look like a goddess. I said, no, this is a very ordinary sari. If you go to India, you will see real amazing saris. This is a very daily wear kind of sari. And that was true. And he was very fascinated. And then he started talking to me. Then, what do you do? And I'm an author. Okay, what have you written? I told him the book. He immediately started looking it up in Google, Amazon, and he said, I'm going to read it. Yeah, sure, please do read it. So, you be that embodiment of that person that you want to see in others, and automatically things fall in place. So I would say, get close, be close to the children. Don't talk down to them. Go a little way with them, and then slowly bring in those things. That is one thing. And then I'm also going to a lot of camps. That is in the future, I want to do more of it. Just one camp that I did was so successful. The children were just so interested by hearing the story of India. We don't have to do much. Just tell stories from India, as Anuradha was saying. And my frequent trips to India, I often write small things about what happened, what I noticed. I went to this village or I just went to this place where a lady was selling something by the roadside. I talked to her and these are the things she said. And I make it into a very nice story and put it in Facebook or anywhere. And they realized that this lady has got so much wisdom sitting on the roadside and selling something. She knows so much about produce, farming, about the philosophy. And then I put it there. Okay, there was a time when Indian rituals were being made fun of, like Kanya Dana and all that, you frequently will come across articles where, how dare a woman do this and how, a man is not expected to do this ritual and all that. Again, I have two strategies. Sometimes I don't go and fight with these people. I just put it in a different way. So I wrote a small post on Kanya Dana. I put a picture of my own wedding, how, the water is being poured, right? And then it is flowing through various things, and my mother-in-law is catching it at the end. I showed everybody, explained that's ritual. So I said, where is patriarchy here? Everybody is here. My mother-in-law is here. My father is there. My mother is there. So this is just a beautiful ritual which says that I am going to their family, and I'm going to become a part of their family, but I'm always going to be my father and mother's daughter as well. So I explain rituals also to through my Facebook posts and social media. So yeah, social media also you need to have a presence nowadays. Yeah, the coolness thing, but I'm not trying to be cool. I just love to express myself. So it's a medium for me. Not everybody may want to do it, but I think at least get close to your children. That's the first step.
Thank you. Thank you all. Oh, sorry. Yes.
In yesterday's panel, students were discussing this and they said that it has to be cool. And one more line they added that learning should be joy. So what I fully agree with Mahadevanji that we need to change the pedagogy. You can't just go in the class and blah, blah, and complete the portion, what is assigned to you. And again, quoting Chinmaya, they are not the pots to be filled in, but they are the lamps to be lit. When they really enjoy something, gaining the knowledge, their faces lit up. So to see that glow on their faces, the teacher should try. And for that, Shravanam is essential. It is not a one-way traffic. You need to listen to the children. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. If you go by that ancient pedagogy, Atma Vare Drashtavyaha, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, then that will be really cool. Another thing is that coolness associated with joy. Joy is Sukha. And what is Sukha basically? Joy is Sukha, being Swastha. And I drive you, I may take you to the etymology, which is my favorite domain. So the etymology of Sukha is Shobhanam Kham. The entire parisara should be Shobhana. It's not only my bodily health, which is very good, but my emotional level, my parents, my children, my family members, even my pets. If my pet is not happy, if my pet passes away, then I have seen so many of my friends, who are grieving and they are remembering their pets. So because that makes their parisara. And if everything is in place, then only they are swastha, swasmin tishtati, it is swastha. So that joy in learning, that becomes cool, that leads to sukha, that leads to swasthya and swasthya later on.
So, thank you for that. So I just realized that the most important word cool was missing from my answer. So I thought I had to address that. So I think that one of the ways that we can really make this cool is to get the cool youngsters to empower cool youngsters to become leaders of this movement. So we can talk and all, we can think about coolness and all, but I think if we have a few figures here, like I was just thinking Anuradha, who plays so many percussion instruments, I think that's super cool. And excels, he's doing psychology. Or we have Vidula here, who's, she's a textile. Yesterday she came and she's actually made out of banana fiber. She's crocheted her own bag. And she's gone to villages and she's made looms for those village people to create, fiber, this banana fiber things. And then, empowered them in that way. I think that's cool. Padma Priya, who's an artist, she's a singer, she's a, knows 700 Bhagavad Gita shlokas and many more. And we got a TED Talk speaker. What's your name? I forgot. Aditya Raja. He's a TED Talk speaker and all. I think like these people are the real cool models that we need to understand. And also maybe to get, for us, the older generation that is trying to bring in cooler, I think we need to identify what is this coolness all about. So if we can do some survey, just get some really good feedback on what does coolness really signify, and then try and present our content, our really precious content in the box in a manner that they can wear it on the ears and suddenly they're feeling like super hip or whatever. So I think those are important things. So, yeah.
I don't think for that, I would like to disagree with Ajay ji, with your kind permission, that we don't need 2-3 generations to heal up that wound. We have here some cool people, and we talk about Shataritraha Navaha, and we are in Kerala in Onam season, we have that sailing the snake boats, dragon boats, and we are here in the metaphor of sailing the boat here, all of us, right? And so why not give that, that onus on these school students, and they will take it ahead.
Ajay, if you can hold that a minute, there is more coming. Not because there are 2-3 terms that came up, picking up on the last that Anuradha ji and Gauri ji mentioned, which is about empowering youngsters. And Ganti Murthy ji, you mentioned the ecosystem. So I want to really get to what is that ecosystem that we need to build, that we are building. What are the enablers that are going to make this happen? I think we all agree that in some ways the current government has done some things right? But that enabling goes beyond the government. You, Ganti Murthy ji, are most closely connected with the government as far as the people here. So I'd like you to kick off that discussion, and then we'll take it from there to others.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sundarji. So in terms of, if we want to build an ecosystem, there are many components. Essentially what we need to, I come from a systems analysis background. So I mean, we do systems research to look at different environmental and those kind of systems. So when we look at that, you need to look at it from multiple perspectives. Anuradha ji was talking about different lenses that we need to wear and things like that. So when we envisioned this, at least at the IKS division, the grand plan that we have is, I will use 2 metaphors again. One is priming the pump and filling the pipeline. So the idea is bore wells, right? Some of the time, or some of those small tulu pumps where you actually have to pour some water before it gets started. And then you have to ensure that the pipeline that goes into that well is always filled with water. Then once you have that filled with water and then you start that pump, then essentially you can have that, because if the well is a source of a lot of water, then this essentially water will flow continuously. And then the reason that I'm thinking about that kind of a metaphor is, right now, for the parampara to be there, it has to be continuous. So it has got stagnated somewhere. So it has to flow. And we have an inexhaustible source of that well that is essentially our huge demographic dividend that we have. If we want that to be flowing, then we need to be thinking about things all the way from how do we fill that pipeline, where does that pipeline come from? Essentially, it starts at the preschool level, at the home, then 12 years of school education, then higher education, and then these students become research scholars. We need to pick their interest, and then as we start up, then it has to go to the higher education. Then they have to become research scholars. We need to support individual faculty to become, better researchers in IKS, rejuvenate that research, and then build institutional capacities. So these are all things that are going to happen. If that happens, if we can jumpstart this, then we can fill the pipeline and prime the pump. And we need to support this thing. And how do we support it? We need to make sure that there are resources available for a researcher to go and find the information, or as Ajay was saying, they will go and Google themselves. For that, we need to make sure that there is authentic content available. So all that background info, that stage needs to be built. And all of these things we have been strategically working, at least at the IKS division. And then also, this also needs at one level, you also need to work with the regulatory bodies like AICTE, UGC, so that we can actually build these things into the systemic structure so that it becomes systematized and is not an add-on. Because anything that is add-on is easy to discard, but anything that is assimilated becomes part of the system. So that's essentially the way that we are trying to do. There are many initiatives that we try to do there. So I'll not go into details of each initiative there, but this is the philosophy that we are using. The idea is fill the pipeline and prime the pump and start it. And how do we do it is essentially, we are open for suggestions, but we are working on a few different plans.
So this is wonderful to hear what Ganti Murthy ji you are doing in this area, and I can only understand the enormity of the task in front of all of us. And I fully agree with Gauri ji that yes, we will certainly try to do it in one generation, less than that. And the process started long time back. It's not that we are the only ones to see this and say, hey, look, do it. People before us are also doing it. So the process of healing has started. There's a lot of work to be done. In the university, Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, we are very proud that Puja Swami ji could actually think along those lines. He had a very different path, as we all know, decided to go to Rishikesh to investigate Swamis there, because he did not believe that they are doing the right kind of things, got converted himself, and look what he has provided to us. 350 centers all over the world, 100 colleges and schools, some of the top ranking colleges in India are run by the group. He didn't want anything for himself out of it. Now, that is the ecosystem that he created, and government is there to help us in taking it forward yet again. The university came into being. We were very fortunate to have somebody sitting just next to me, Mahadevan ji to lay the foundation, Gauri ji to come put more bricks on that, other people, and finally, I'm here to do whatever I can do. I promise one thing. I, long time back, did my PhD from Cambridge. And I remember all the people who were there, the head of department calls us there. And he welcomed us with only these words that, look, you all are very clever, you are geniuses. I can't teach you. I can provide you the resources to do what you want to do. That's the approach I also want to take. My knowledge of IKS is limited. I find that quite comfortable. I felt very happy when you mentioned that you go talk to a lady selling fruits and she can give you some wisdom. So I believe that anybody coming from India having even zero knowledge has that mindset, which is above the knowledge and the skill. So that Indian Bharatiya mindset, and the fact Bharatiya mindset is actually winning. There are a couple of things in that. One is we assume that the change is inevitable. Change will happen. Jagat, Jug, keeps on changing. So our mindset, the Indian mindset, is very geared for tackling that change. They're not frightened. West is trying to control everything. If given a chance, they will control climate as well. Hey, look, it is now summer, you must be 37 degrees and no more. We don't do that. Now look at market. IT industry is the one that changes fast, goes through ups and downs very rapidly. Look at the top tech companies in the world. Look who runs them. Indian brains. They may not know IKS, they may not know anything, but coming from India, having that Indian mindset makes them run Google, make them run Microsoft, make them Citibanks, and many other things. So in that sense, that ecosystem is what we will provide. We are very lucky to have such incredible support from all of you. I'll promise that we will take all that in, whatever else my faculty requires, whatever else my students require, we'll give you that. We'll give you that. You bring it up.
May I, Ajay ji, while the others are speaking, I'd like you to conclude this round with, in the next 12 to 24 months, what can we expect from CVV for this enablement? What you said is absolutely on the mark. If you can just think about, you want to wait till some of the others speak and then conclude the, yes, Mahadevan ji.
No, I think what has been said on the ecosystem, I think we have three major constituencies. One is the teaching community, other is the student, who partakes in this whole process, and the third is the set of auxiliary resources that we need. I think this is what really makes an ecosystem, and Ganti has already said there is a lot of investments that are being made. Government of India has, the national education policy has decided to completely revamp the school education system from the age 3. Again, there is a lot of things about knowledge of India and all that, which are all happening. So I think there are investments happening on the student side, which will find its own. I see the biggest challenge is to get the teaching community. See, we should be inspired by Upanishad. We don't have to go anywhere. Satyakama Jabali was asked to go. Once the number of cows become 1,000, you come back. That's all is the learning. 12 years, he came back. One cow told on his ear that we are already 1,000. There's a way it is explained actually so beautifully. That's the instruction given, because that student requires only that instruction. Okay? Or, if you go to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says da, da, da. And, Devas understood in a particular way, Asuras understood in a different way, and, human beings understood in a different way. That was what it was. You go to Mahanarayan Upanishad, there is an Aruni, Vidya, Prajapati Aruni Vidya. So Aruna goes and asks Prajapati, how will I evolve? Prajapati says, sun has to rise every day. It's beautiful. That mantra is so beautiful. He simply says, sun has to, Yada Adityas Tapati Chandrama, that's how it starts. Sun has to rise every day. People, it arouses a lot of curiosity. What the hell is he talking? But you should read that mantra. It says how if the sun rises every day, how the climatic cycles are good, how the Oshadhi Vanaspatayas will be well, we will eat very well, we will get any nourishment, Shraddha, Shraddhaya, Medaya, Manisha. That's the way he describes. You go to Bhargavi Varuni Vidya, you find something else in Taittiriya Upanishad. Our people must be inspired by what we have. Our teachers are extraordinary. They did not use the same thing and then, filled all the plates the same way. I think I see one of the biggest, and we have been talking about it in some committees and so on from the government side and so on. I think one big challenge is how do we get very inspiring teachers who are not, as somebody, I think Ajiji or somebody was saying, alluding to not filling the syllabus and, all that. They have a huge possibility to catalyze this whole inspirational thing coming out of the students. I think we need to also work seriously on it. On the availability of resources, I think textbooks, so many things are there. I think all these, we have started taking initiatives. I think universities will play a role. The government is trying to play a role. I think we need to collectively sensitize this again and again. And as more people come in, I think the ball will start rolling.
Since you mentioned ecosystem, I think one ecosystem that has not been mentioned is the Gurukulas. So because Gurukulas got sidelined once this, big universities came, and because of the book that I wrote, I have been visiting a lot of Gurukulas, and a lot of amazing ways of learning are being explored over there. Or maybe they are ancient methods which have been slightly modified. So if there's a way they could also be part of this ecosystem, the Vedic chanting, Ved Pathshalas, the way they remember things, the memory techniques that they use should also be inputs to our mainstream system, and many other things, character building, the brahmacharya, that concepts. So if the ecosystem could also include these gurukulas, because they also need to grow, and there has to be that exchange between the gurukulas and these big institutes. I wish that people from the regular mainstream schools could also go and see how children in the Gurukula are learning and living the life. So if that also could be a part of the program.
All right. So again, I think all the main important areas that build ecosystems have been dealt with by Murthy ji, Ajay ji, Mahadevan ji, and Sahana ji. But I think that at the end of the day, also it really depends on the individual. So somebody had asked the mother from Pondicherry Ashram the question that how does one bring change? So she said, be yourself the change that you want to be, what Gandhiji also has said. But if you are a living symbol of that light, then you will automatically encourage others around you. So I think that it is absolutely important to have the systems in place and all, but if the people who are leading the movement themselves are not living examples of the IKS attitude, then I think we will still fail, because I think one of the reasons why we have failed despite so many, so much that is in the atmosphere is because we have not been able to live authentically enough at all levels the ideas or the underlying vision of this civilization. So I think one of 2-3 words that come to my mind. One is, if we can in the IKS circles learn how to be non-judgmental, what Sahana ji was saying. I think that non-judgmental attitude and an openness to learn, no matter where the source of knowledge is. I think if that can be one criteria. Another is non-hierarchical. Just because, and I think sometimes I maybe even find myself guilty of that, is just because we have a background of a certain knowledge, we tend to subconsciously, reflect a pride that can sound condescending of another. So I think these are very subtle places one has to be watchful. The example that I have to, that I would relate to is how Buddhism really took over a lot of the institutes. I mean, we are struggling with Indian psychology that we are far older than, the Buddhist psychology and all. But the way in which they literally entered and have become one of the main voices of cutting edge psychology through mindfulness and all is because I believe that the Dalai Lama gave very strict instructions that you have to be a practitioner of the psychology you speak, so that hypocrisy which discourages the curious mind can be avoided. So I think when we talk IKS, on one side one has to be embodiments of the authenticity in terms of the accuracy of the information one is imparting. That is also something that we would like to, because it was something that was shared even about the poster presentations and all. So as youngsters, if you are also becoming, let's say, the leaders of this movement at your peers, make sure that the content that you are presenting is authentic, not on WhatsApp University, but that you might have actually taken the trouble to go and maybe investigate an original source or talk to an expert who is in contact with an original source. So put in that little effort to make sure that what you're presenting is irrefutable. So as presenters, I think that is one important thing. I know time is running out. The other one is, of course, that one has to embody the values that one is talking about as much as possible. Because if a youngster, or even if somebody from a different faith, because we also should be careful that we are not sounding too much only from a Hindu perspective, very bluntly put. So one has to make sure that one is representing the principles that the Sanatana Dharma talked about. So that, and that is what has ensured the sustainability of this knowledge tradition. So I think to be able to present that would be very effective. So create ecosystems that are conscious of these points, authenticity.
Anuradha ji, you've taken my next question away. So I'll just let Ajay ji conclude the previous one and then I'll ask.
Sundarji is a master of asking most difficult questions. But anyway, let me try to. So in a sense, when I look at IKS, a couple of, I would say, fundamental assumptions drive me in taking. So number one, I was very glad that Ganti Murthy ji in the opening session said Bharatiya, because India now and 10,000, 12,000 years back, when we were developing all these things, were very different. Panini's birthplace is not in India anymore, if you know. So putting Indian knowledge to me is also ill-defined. Skill is lost, mindset is lost. But anyway, we know that whatever has been done is at least a wonderful step in that direction. So coming from that, the moment I say, let's say, Indian knowledge system, everything that happened in India in the last 15,000 years by anybody in India is Indian knowledge system. I will not like to say that only a PhD holder can dictate what that Indian knowledge system is. A lowly farmer, whether he knows Sanskrit or not, that is also our India part of Indian knowledge system. They may also teach us something very well. And we have very famous stories where Ram Setu was being built. The squirrel comes and says, hey, look, what do I carry? And then carries a little piece of sand, and Ramchandra says, hey, look, you did a wonderful job, and does this, and we still see the trees. So that is, to me, that gives me a big problem. How do I teach that big ocean to my students in, let's say, 5% of the course curriculum? Otherwise, regulatory bodies will come and say, hey, look, that's not on. You can't call your graduate a commerce graduate or an engineer if you have not taught them all that. They are very good in other things. So that's also an issue. So what do I perceive? And they're practicing. That mindset is, to me, more important, much more important. How do we build that? The subtle cues that we are picking up from the environment, we are picking up from movies, we are picking up from magazines, which are continuously saying Western world is better than you. How do we change that narrative? How do we tell our students, hey, look, our stuff is also good? And they will like a proof. Being an engineer, I will give them a proof. Not frightened of that. I've done that all my life, written lots and lots of papers citing those proofs. So I'll do that. So Sundarji, coming to that, couple of things there. So we will like to have practice IKS. Last month, 2 months, we encountered, I personally saw, we all say that children are going through a lot of trauma and a lot of mental issues. First time I experienced what that is. I've immediately now created a slot, half an hour, beginning of the lectures every day. And we will cover meditation, we will cover yoga, we will cover very, very modern tools of managing themselves, everything. To me, that will give them tools to survive in the world, cope with the problems they are facing. I faced my problems, my father faced his problems, they are facing this problem. My task is to make sure that happens. We will do that. Secondly, when the campus comes up, those subtle cues about our culture, our things will be there. Our behavior has to be that. Our Vidya was that you know about the thing, then you are able to practice it, and then you are able to actually teach it also. I don't want an example where we have parrots, when it comes to practicing it, they're getting very agitated. No, that agitation is what the child will pick up. Knowledge they will forget. So that behavior, which Mahadevan ji very nicely mentioned also, so that we will also do. So we will mount programs for doing that, Sundarji. So all that ecosystem, physical, and then our focus, total focus on students and our faculty. A lot of that is getting rolled out now.
Thank you, Ajay ji. Gauri ji, I'd like you to start the answer to the last question, but in that I'd like you to answer the previous one also. You have been in the formal sector, which is the university sector. Now you are in SIF, which is kind of on the borderline, it's more of the informal sector. So what can the informal sector do to build the ecosystem? That is one. Now the last question that I'd like you to address is there are 60, 80 youth here and 20, 30 faculty and everybody else. What are the one or two things that we can start doing today that will go towards making IKS a reality for us? So two-part question. The rest of you will answer only the second part.
You always put me in trouble. I had warned him, very unfair. Can I take the last question first? So what is that thing which we can start today itself? So many youth here, faculty and staff and all of us. Do anything which your heart permits you to do. Don't just listen to your brain, but listen to your heart. And whenever you are in a conflict, it is always, Satam hi sandeha padeshu vastushu pramanamantah karana pravrittayah. So whatever appeals to your heart, start doing it right from now. And I did it by saying this. Okay. First one was what?
What is the informal sector?
Informal, yeah. That's a very tricky question. See, throughout my life, I was in a formal structure in Mumbai University, in this place, CVV. I worked for some time as VC, then Dean. What I feel, I mean, maybe my age also, you already called me Jnana Vriddha, but I am a Vriddha. Jnana, I don't know, I am a Vriddha. So the formal system always confines your creativity. What I feel is the formalities, the policies, the rules, the regulations, they confine you, they bind you. If you want to grow, there has to, I mean, that ecosystem, we have to build up such an ecosystem that in that formal structure also, if we can build up something informal, because when people see me here around, they say, oh, you are glowing now. Maybe because, Nini, CVV, I had a very, very good experience, very enriching experience, but I think I have cut off the threads from that formality now, and that bandhana is gone. So what is moksha? It is free from bondages. So that is a bondage, right? And at certain point of time, at certain stage of time, I feel that informality is required, and I don't want to be. And many people I have seen, they don't want to get entangled in the formal structure of anything, because knowledge can't be confined. Knowledge is power, but knowledge can't be confined to anything. So I'm enjoying it far more in the same environment, same campus, but without the restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauriji. Now, if each of you could address just one or two things, and you have a time limit of 1 minute each.
Right. So I think one thing you said which can be implemented, I think you need to have something to some kind of training maybe for everyone to be more organized and use their day better, and have the phones. All of us have phones, and they have so many tools that we don't use at all. We only use it mostly for texting or for maybe sometimes calculators and things like that. But there are so many things possible with this phone that in the last a few months, I have been learning a lot from my daughter. And I'm using my phone to make me more efficient and plan things better. So that whole, the task list, the reminders, and there are a bunch of things. You can also put apps in it, which will make you efficient. Because since there are so few of us in this dharmic space, and we have so much work to do, not a single moment can be wasted. You cannot get up in the morning not knowing what you're going to do throughout the day. Every hour has to be accounted. We are talking about this, that if you don't have a plan on what you want to do in that certain time of the day, say like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, somebody else is going to set the agenda for you, and you'll end up doing what somebody else wants, not what you want. So that planning, if you could just have some planning, training for planning and for using the phone to the best possible ability, that you become very efficient, organized and productive. And so you plan the whole week, plan the whole month. Even if you don't follow it completely, you also have room for deviating a little bit. So plan for enjoyment, plan for holidays, but have a plan. That's
Thank you. I'll just make a small comment on the first question and then go to the second question within the 1 minute time. So the way that Gauriji was talking about, there are lots of difficulties in the formal structure and things like that. So I do agree completely with that. But then I look at our Varnashrama Dharma and look at it up as the formal structure, as like the Grihasthashrama. It's very painful. There are many responsibilities, many difficulties, but still we'll have to do that because that upholds all the other ashramas. So that's the way I was envisioning, because I'm still in the formal structure. I don't have the liberty of
Already come to graduate to Vanaprastha.
Exactly. So the point is, we still need to work with these structures, and that's the way that just it came up. And then regarding how do we engage all of you here. The model I think of is again from Bharata, civilizationally what our temples used to do and what they were. Essentially, temples were not just for basically for praying. There were many things that they were there, and every part of the society could go and contribute. If I knew Veda mantras, I would go and chant them. If I knew the Puja Anushtana Vidhi, I could actually do that. If I did not know any of that, all I knew was to basically carry. I would carry weight. I would actually carry the palaki of the Bhagavan and then go around. If I did not know that, I knew only to carry a lamp. I would actually put that thing and then go around. If I knew music, I would actually perform there. If I knew nothing but garlanding, I would actually do that and then give it. Ultimately, all of that was towards a purpose. With that purpose, if we can work and we can contribute in any significant way, any way that we can with our expertise, I think is the best way that we all can use your capabilities to take this forward. What that really means in practical terms is, let's say you're a good graphic designer. Please make sure that whatever content that you're creating is in that space of IKS. Or if you're a musician, please ensure that most of that work is geared towards that. Let's say you don't know any of this. All you can do is mathematics. Learn some Leelavati and teach that to the kids. So do whatever you do with that IKS bent, and I think that will really create that ecosystem. And again, just this is something that I felt when I was thinking about the IKS, state of IKS in our country and things like that. Once I was having darshan of Jagannatha in Puri. You know, the word Juggernaut comes from that word Jagannath. So this whole, and the reason why that has come out is because the Jagannath Ratha, once it starts moving, doesn't stop. Even if there are walls, they are broken down, it goes forward. It never stops until it reaches its destination. I think Bharatiya Jnana Parampara and Bharata as a civilization is that Jagannath Ratha that has started, and it will go forward.
I think after Ganti has spoken, nothing else need to be told. I think he has very nicely put what needs to be done. I will just want to parrot it with a slight change. You know, there is a tradition here. A person goes to a teacher and learns Vyakarana and then asks him, what is a Guru Dakshina? And the teacher said, the Guru Dakshina is you will teach to 6 more people. That's all is my Guru Dakshina. So IKS needs Guru Dakshina now. So I'll only parrot what he says. I think I entirely agree with him. Each one of us have our own interests. Somebody is interested in music, somebody is interested in temple, somebody is interested in physics, somebody, it doesn't matter. You take a pratigna today that I will step into one element of IKS, go deep into it as she was saying, understand it in whatever ways I can, and I'll make sure I transmit it to 6 more people. That's all I think we need to do. But we will do it faster than all our imagination and projection if we can take that, pratigna today at the end of this conference.
Om. But the beauty of the Gita is that it's not that Sri Krishna says 700 different things in 700 shlokas. He says maybe 10 important points in 70 different ways. So the same thing in a different way is basically this, that I would like you to ask yourself this question: what does it mean to be a Bharatiya? So where lies the Bharatiyatva of Bharatiya, the Indianness of the Indian ideas that we're talking about? Where does it lie? And you can take my number, you can send me, because this is something that is occupying my interest and I'm wanting to understand it myself. So where lies the Bharatiyatva of being a Bharatiya? That is one. And the second one is, so think about it, discuss about it, share it. The second idea that I have, that I'd like to propose to you, is Swami Vivekananda's idea of Ma Bhihi. He says that the Indian was empowered because we had this idea of Ma Bhihi. Don't be afraid. The Upanishadic message. So this was a mind, even Sri Aurobindo says, that was not afraid of asking, of being. So I would suggest that once you discover that, then have the courage to ask questions about everything. Ask questions about traditions, ask questions about modern traditions, ask questions and content yourself with that which looks to be reasonable and lasting, or two things, and which brings good for people. These are important criterion of this Indian civilization. So have the courage to ask questions and then to be what you understand is the real thing, authentic, what Sahana ji was saying. So I think that is the two things that I would suggest that you do.
Did Ajay ji want to conclude this? Okay. Okay, with that, we've come to the end of a wonderful discussion. My thanks to Dr. Anuradha ji, Professor Mahadevan ji, Dr. Ajay Kapoor, Dr. Ganti Murthy ji, Sahana ji, Professor Gauri ji. My wonderful thanks. There were some wonderful points that were made, and I think I want to, since this is all about visualization, the image that Ganti Murthy ji created, that Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, the Ratha has started moving, and we want to make it a Ratha that doesn't stop. That is all in our hands. And so with that, I will just leave it at that. Thank you all. Thank you, Sunita ji, for making this discussion happen. And over to you.
I would like to thank all the panelists personally and on behalf of all the visitors. I would like to make a small point. After all these big discussions, I can relate this to the ship that is made again and brought to the shore. It is in our hands, the visitors who have come across the country, to either dismantle it and keep it in a museum for wharves and house, or to let it sail again, bring back all the lost and the surviving IKS to the land, and to make us cherish and enrich the relic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you people. Now I would like to move on to the next event. Before that, I request all the panelists to please occupy the first seat. Small announcement.